Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new real-life car review, or in this case a real-life commercial van review. This is the Toyota ProAce double cab extended wheelbase electric, meaning it seats a crew of 5 or a family of 5. Thanks to the extended wheelbase we still have a large cargo capacity, and electric, well, speaks for itself. But how does that work out when you are a working crew or you have to do a lot of deliveries with an electric van? Well, it's mandatory in more and more cities nowadays where you have emission-free zones, and the only way to get in and do your work is with an electric van. But is it still practical enough? Well, we're here to find out in this real-life car review. And as per usual, we start off by having a peek under the hood. So let's see if I can open this up, because this is slightly different than what I'm used to, because this van is basically a Toyota Stellantis product. It's also available in the Peugeot or Opel version, and it's originally developed as a diesel van. It's also available with a 1.5 liter or a 2 liter diesel engine. The 1.5 makes 120 horsepower and the diesel versions are available in 145 or 180 horsepower version. When they developed this van, they also had in mind to make it into an EV, but the diesel version had priority. But then again, if you take out the diesel engine and you implant an electric motor, you get a lot of empty space, because that electric motor is so incredibly compact, and in this case it makes 136 horsepower. I don't know the torque numbers, but I'll blink that in screen. What's important to know is that the Toyota ProAce Electric is available with 2 battery sizes, namely a 50 or 75 kilowatt hour battery, and the standard version, which is the single cab short wheelbase version with 50 kilowatt hour battery, has a range of 230 kilometers, which isn't much, which is only suitable for local deliveries. This version has a 75 kilowatt hour battery, and with the extended wheelbase and double cab it has a range of 350 kilometers. How that plays out in reality I'll explain in the driving segment, but one thing that I can point out already is the nice calibration of this drivetrain, and you can really tell that the software tones down the performance of this a little bit. With an electric van you often have a company or for commercial activities, and the cost of running, cost of ownership is really important, and by dialing down the performance in normal drive mode, you get most out of the battery, and also you can save on tire wear, of course, because when you apply the full power of an electric motor on the front wheels, this is a front wheel drive platform only, you'll wear out tires quickly. And we all know the white van men, at least in the UK, they're always driving at top speed, and you can imagine if you apply full torque in a commercial van with that driving style, that will wear out the drivetrain and especially tires and suspension parts very prematurely. And that's why the Toyota and Stellantis engineers calibrated the drivetrain in such a manner that in normal drive mode you always have very decent acceleration, but it's not overwhelming in any sense. And other than that, there's nothing much to see here. It's basically one big empty space. The 12-volt battery is over there, so if you need to jump start it at any point, it's pretty easy accessible. And it's very neatly done, by the way the cables are routed and such, and the accessibility of all the other lines for the AC, the coolant over here, the washer fluid, it's very neatly done. But this being an EV, it means that you don't have to do a lot of maintenance under here, and the only ones that will see this on a regular basis are the Toyota, Peugeot or Opel mechanics. Anyway, let's close up and let's have a peek in the huge cargo area. One thing that I find a little bit odd is that the Toyota badge is placed all the way to the left. I would much rather have it somewhere centered or on this door only, but they chose to do this. Another thing that I find a little bit odd for this electric version is that the taillights are complete incandescent bulbs, so no LED lights over here. In the front we do have full LED headlights. Also 2 wipers, and these are normal windows, and there is a window in the division compartment between the cargo area and the passenger area, and it gives you a very decent view through the rear view mirror, so that's pretty nice to have. 2 wipers with the nozzles in the wipers themselves. Let's open up the doors. You have these little latches over here, and when you push those you can, when you pull those, you can completely open the doors. If you want to have a full pallet on a forklift, get it inside here. Now looking at the cargo space, this one, the double cab with the extended wheelbase, has 4 cubic meters of cargo space. The standard version, so that's the single cab with either a 2 or 3 seat configuration, has a 5.3 cubic meter cargo space, and single cab with the extended wheelbase has up to 6.1 cubic meters of cargo space. Now in this case there are a lot of options available for this car from the dealership, so you can completely get it fitted with a cargo floor and storage racks and all such things. In this case we have a non-slip cargo floor, which I think is real nice. It's a sort of a sandwich panel. It's set anti-slip, and that really works really well. And this week I put my shopping crate over here, just put it in here, rode home 20 kilometers, and it didn't move an inch over the floor. They choose very durable, it looks a bit cheap, but they are very durable materials over here. A lot of tie down points in the floor, and most of them are covered up with these holes here or these little covers that you can take out, so you don't get too much dirt in there. Yeah, as said, 4 cubic meters. It's the largest cargo space we ever saw in a real life car review. Very practical, and as said, from the dealership you can get a lot of options to suit your needs for your commercial activities. There's an LED light over there, and just a normal incandescent bulb over here at the entry. And before I forget to mention it, there is a backup camera in here, and when you back up you can see the view along the rear of the car. But when you want to hook on a trailer and you have a towing hitch over here, and when you approach an obstacle, so the trailer that you want to hook up to, the view changes from a rearward view from a top-down view, so that you can see how far the tongue of the trailer is away from the towing hitch, which I think is a very nice option. Anyway, let's close up and have a peek in the interior. Alright, let's hop aboard. There's always this little odd half step that you need to have in these kind of vehicles, so you have a nice high up seating position, real nice dashboards, very spacious. So as in any modern vehicle, we now have a digital gauge cluster. When this button over here, you can change the view. There are 5 different views over here, and you can configure them as in other Toyotas, but that's okay. Nice little display over here, and I like you have the home button over here. And with this button here, the car button, you get an immediate shortcut to the advanced driver assistance systems, so you can switch off the overspeed warning and the lane assist, which I think is real nice, and that's something that we see more and more cars, that you have a very easy way to shut off those annoying systems. Having a look at dashboards, very sturdy materials, very basic I would say, but yeah, you have to make a living in these kinds of vehicles. They don't have to be neat, they have to be practical. It's very easy to clean, one damp cloth and you wipe it over and it looks factory new again. The only downside of these plastic is that they get a little bit static and they attract a lot of dirt and dust, so you have to wipe it clean on the regular. And over here you have a compartment for your papers. And that brings me to one thing. I'm aware that in modern work activities, everything is done by computer, but you also have a lot of paperwork to do, especially when you're a contractor or a builder. You have to fill in some forms every now and then, also the case when you do deliveries. And I would find it nice if you would have some kind of tablet that you could put on the steering wheel, which I used to have in my truck back in the day, so I could write down a form. There's nothing like that over here. And also this space is very open, and there are configurations available where you have 3 seats in the front, so this area over here is quite open, so the third person sitting in the middle has at least some leg room. Anyway, this is the gear selector for the electric version. We have 3 drive modes, which are power, normal and eco, and it always starts off in normal mode, and I leave it this way. This is the typical Stellantis climate control panel. We do have dual zone climate control, and you will notice when you start using the climate control in an electric vehicle that it's quite quite a bit up from the range. So when I picked up this car, it had 350 kilometers of range after full charge, but when we activated the climate control, it immediately dropped 15 to 20 kilometers. Now this is the electric version, and the double cab is only available in a 2+3 configuration, meaning you have 2 seats over here in the front and we have 3 seats in the back over there. As said, the materials are very basic, but all modern creature comforts are there. Car also has heated seats, and we have a heated steering wheel, and you see there are a lot of blanking plates for buttons, but I saw in the brochure you can get things like flashers and other electrical systems, and then they would integrate the buttons over here, so that's why you have a lot of blanking plates. Anyway, interior space is neat, very basic materials, but creature comfort, seating comfort also is pretty darn good. So let's have a quick peek in the rear passenger space. Now the nice thing about this version is that it has 2 sliding doors on either side, and ingress and egress of course is super easy. Oh yeah, one thing that I want to show you before I get in is that you have these nice cargo areas. You pull this little tab on the seat, and the left and center seat have a large storage compartment over there, and that's where I have the charger for the wall outlet at home stored. And let's get in. As you may expect, ingress and egress is super easy. Only thing that I notice is that the driver's seat is slightly offset, and it's sitting on a frame over there, so the legroom is a little bit limited, but seating comfort isn't all that bad. The cushions are a bit on the harder side. You cannot adjust the seat back, but if you have to do a 2-hour drive in the back over here, it's not a bad place to be. You do have reading lights, as said, 2 sliding doors. And what I noticed is that the seat belts are incorporated in the seat back. So when you're sitting on the left of the car, your buckle is on the left. It's, you have to get used to. Not much creature comforts. I did notice that you have USB-C outlets over here in the B-pillar. Now we can do a window test, but I want to see how easy it's to close these doors. And well, you have to give it a little pull, but you have to reach a little bit back, so for kids this is not ideal, but anyway, mom and dad can do it for them. So we do even have armrests over here, which I think that's a real nice touch. And I must say, you have large windows and also a good view towards the outside through the front windows and the windscreen itself. Well, we've looked in the engine bay, cargo capacity, we've been through the interior. I think it's about time we go on a drive. Alrighty folks, we're rolling, and the first thing that I want to point out in the drive segment is a point that I talked about in the under the hood segment, namely the drivetrain calibration. As said, it always sets off in normal drive mode. Now I'm a single person in this car, only a driver, and when I floor it, well, there is an immediate response of course, but the acceleration isn't overwhelming and neck breaking. It could have been, but the normal drive mode is laid out in such a manner that you don't make sudden and abrupt movements. It's a moderate acceleration. Now let me flick it over in sport mode. I haven't even tested it. Oh, it's called power mode. Makes much more sense. Now I floor it. Doesn't make much of a difference. And then you have eco mode, and I'll leave that for what it is, because in eco mode it also dials back the climate control, and it goes in, the air conditioning goes into sort of eco mode, and especially when you're driving with passengers it can get too hot easily in this passenger compartment, so we'll leave that for what it is. We have some bumps over here, and that brings me to my next talking point, namely the suspension setup. As said, I'm the only one in the vehicle, and this is a commercial vehicle intended to transport passengers and goods. Speaking about cargo capacity, this one has a load capacity of 1,050 kilos, and if this was a single cab it would have been 1,250 kilos of load capacity. Towing capacity, this vehicle can tow up to 1,000 kilos. So if you want to do real towing, you're better off with the diesel versions. But anyway, back to the suspension setup. It's intended to transport a certain amount of load, and when you're single driver, yeah, you can tell that the ride is a bit more bumpy, so it really jumps up and down on speed bumps, and there's a lot of head bobbing in the car. But I could tell when we were with the four of us, my family in the car, that already it toned down the bumpiness of the ride. So we cannot judge this as I normally do as a passenger car. So that being said, let's continue our ride and see how this handles. The next thing I want to talk about is the steering. Well, as you may expect, this is not intended as a driver's car, but I will say this is that the steering has a nice amount of assist. It's light, it's very precise, and when you have to maneuver this car with a trailer and on the towing hook and you have to back up, it's really nice, really precise, well weighted, so that's good. But I did notice that this car doesn't have lane assist. It does have lane departure warning, so when you cross the lane markings it automatically steers you back into your lane. But there's no such thing as a lane assist, and I was thinking about it, and I think, well, maybe the reason is when you do a lot of highway driving where you would use lane assist, yeah, that also eats a lot into the range of this vehicle. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's not really intended as a highway driver. You're better off with the diesel version of the Toyota ProAce, and that's why they left it out. Not sure why that is, but it can be convenient, and I kind of missed it in this car. But anyway, that is what it is, and it's not available as an option either. So we're currently riding on speed bump road over here. We're approaching a nice speed bump, so I can show you a little bit how the suspension behaves over a speed bump. So let's lower the speed to 70 kilometers an hour. We can do 60, a bit slower. So here's the speed bump. And when you adhere to the speed limit, nothing much is happening in the car. But when you go a little bit too fast over a bump or over a speed bump, you can really tell that the car is jumping up in its suspension, and that's simply due to the fact that the weight that is the load capacity that is there isn't used, and that makes for a little bit of a bumpy ride. One thing that I didn't show in the interior segment are the flappy pedals behind the steering wheel, and as in other EV they are used to set the amount of regen braking, and the nice thing is that it only has 3 settings for the regen braking, and I think that's an exact right amount to have. Currently I'm in setting 1, which is the lowest setting, and when I lift the accelerator the car just starts to coast. There's a very light amount of regen braking, but it's almost like driving an internal combustion engine car, very natural. When I flick it into the second mode, it's becoming a sort of one pedal driving. There's a firm amount of regen braking, a lot of control. It's really nice when you approach a corner, when you enter a corner. I think that's my preferred setting, and in the second setting you also have a lot of control with the accelerator, and when you have the third setting, yeah, you're almost in one pedal driving mode. You can do most of the braking in this van with the accelerated pedal itself. And yeah, it's nice to have only 3 settings. I say only 3 settings, but it's the better for it. In other cars where you have, like in the Hyundai and Kia models, where you have 4 or 5 different settings for regen braking, you're constantly flicking through the regen braking settings. And with this, we go just into your preferred setting and leave it where it is. Works perfectly fine for me. So we now know that this is a real comfy car for families or a working crew of 5. It has a decent cargo capacity, 4 cubic meters, a decent load capacity, decent towing capacity. But how does it work out when you start using this as a commercial vehicle and you're starting to make kilometers or miles on a day? So in other words, what is the range? Well, when I picked up the ProAce, I had a 200 kilometer drive home with a strong headwind, wind force 5 to 6, just under stormy winds, and 200 kilometers with headwind reduced the range to a total of just under 250 kilometers, which I found quite disappointing. But I've been driving around the rest of the week around my hometown, running some errands, getting some groceries, hauling some small stuff with my normal fairly calm driving style, and the range has drastically improved. Currently I'm at 60% of a state of charge, and I have a range left of 190 kilometers, so the advertised 350 kilometers is realistic in my opinion. So I was just wondering what my energy consumption is, and my average energy consumption during the test week is 24.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Anyway, we're heading out to the highway, do a little bit of highway driving, so I can tell you a little bit more about the wind noise, suspension noise of the car. So, see you in a second. Alrighty, there's the highway, we're approaching the on-ramp. Let's put it in power mode and give it the beans. There we go. A little bit of torque steer, and the steering wheel straightened out. 80, 90, 100, it's a little bit faster, 110. This is a nice speed, so let's set the cruise control. It does have adaptive cruise control, and let's merge on the highway. So we have a little headwind. I'm looking at the windmills. Yeah, we do have a little headwind, side wind coming over the A-pillar, and this is the noise in the interior. As you may expect from an electric vehicle, it's fairly quiet, but you can hear the noise over the A-pillars, and actually it's aerodynamics is what's pushing down most on the range of this car. That's what you have with fans. The aerodynamic shape isn't ideal, and yeah, when you get into higher speeds with this vehicle, that really pushes down on the range of this car, so it's not ideal for highway driving, I would say. But from a driver's perspective, from a comfort perspective, this car does really well. There's very little wind noise. You don't have to speak up to make yourself heard for your passengers. It does it really nice. There's very little suspension noise, or better said, there's almost no suspension noise. When this car is delivered on Michelin tires, which are very quiet. There are tires especially for commercial vehicles, so they have a very high load limit. But despite all of that, they are fairly quiet. And yeah, you don't hear any suspension noise. It's just a little bit of wind noise over the A-pillars, over the mirrors. And in fact, I do wish that the mirrors were slightly larger. I have my commercial driving license, and for maneuvering with a trailer on the towing hook, I would prefer to have slightly larger mirrors, but yeah, that would also result in a bit more wind noise. So that's my thoughts on the aerodynamics and wind noise. And I think I've touched upon all my talking points, so let's head out to the middle of nowhere for my final thoughts on the Toyota ProAce double cab extended wheelbase electric. Vehicles in this class, those commercial vans, are usually very well thought out. When you look at the practicality of the cargo space and the passenger comfort, the driver comfort, they're pretty good. The material choice in the interior and cargo space is a bit on the cheaper or more cost-effective side, but it's done for good reason, so it doesn't wear as fast as premium materials, and they're pretty easy to clean. In every respect, the electric version of the ProAce is just as practical as the diesel versions. You have to keep in mind a couple of things, which are: you have limited towing capacity, 1000 kilo for the electric version, fairly or a bit limited cargo or load capacity. In this case it's 1050 kilos, and the other versions of the electric without the double cab have up to 1250 kilo of load capacity. And then there's the range factor. You have to keep in mind that if you have to do a lot of deliveries in European cities, you have to reckon with the emission zones where they only allow electric vehicles for delivery of goods. Diesel vehicles are completely banned in a lot of European cities. If you have to do a bit of highway driving before you go to a city center, or even you have to visit several city centers during a day, you have to factor in that you need some time to charge. The 75 kilowatt hour version of the ProAce has an advertised range of 350 kilometers, and in reality it's 300, just a little bit over 300 kilometers. With this kind of weather, you do want to use the climate control, and on the colder weather or inclement weather, where you start using the ventilation and the defogger, the windscreen wipers, that eats up quite a bit of the range, to be honest. And you have to keep that in mind. The 50 kilowatt hour version of the ProAce Electric is only usable if you do deliveries or visits in a single city center during a day. That has an advertised range of 250 kilometers, which I think will be just over 210 kilometers maybe, and that's not a version that I would consider or recommend. The 75 kilowatt hour version does everything just as well as the diesel versions. If you think a little bit about using the air conditioning and the driving speed, and you limit your highway driving, limit driving at highway speeds, then you will get up to 300 kilometers on a single charge. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Toyota ProAce Electric. I hope you did like following me along, and if you did, please let me know by giving me a like, respond to my videos, give me a comment. That really helps the algorithm and helps me get more views, which is really important for the channel. And other than that, if you want to help support the channel, you can do so by buying me a coffee, and for that I'll leave the link in the description box. For now, I would like to thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next real life car review. Bye!